Welcome to Cars on Call. I'm automotive journalist Steve Schutz. I'm here with trauma surgeon Stephan Moran, automotive connoisseur, collector, historian Adams Hudson. We've got a lot to cover today, guys. We're going to get through a very, I would say, weird Lamborghini. We're going to talk about second quarter 2023 auto sales. We're going to talk about safety, of course, with our trauma surgeon, who is the expert in that area, and then Adams had an idea that we should talk about 5 cars we like but would be embarrassed to be seen in. And that's going to be lots of fun. So we're going to get to that. And guys, how are you? And Adams, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. I noticed you said weird Lamborghini, which I think may be redundant.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
It's a weirder Lambo. How you doing over there, Steph?
I'm doing great. Had a good weekend. Did a little slalom skiing, floated in the water, did a little woodworking, just living the life, man.
Yeah. And growing the beard.
Well, I'm flying tomorrow at Dakar, so I will shave tomorrow. Yeah, I usually have to, if I leave the house and go somewhere, I'll shave. Otherwise, I don't.
Yeah, the mountain man becomes the airman. So and of course, thank you for your service, Stephan. You'll be active duty tomorrow, but you're a reservist, protecting our country.
National Guard.
A National Guard, but still, I mean, you're up. What kind of airplane is it?
KC-135, which is the flying tanker where we refuel other airplanes in the air.
That's so cool. Again, we appreciate what
The
you
flying
do for
what is it called?
The KC-135, the air refueling tanker.
Oh, okay.
It's a cool plane. Yeah.
The flying canker, which I thought was an entirely different mode of transport.
a lot of ways to go with that one, but yeah, very
yeah, that's a stop and start. Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I actually told we had a bunch of people in because we were celebrating my oldest son and his wife, and they had a kind of a reception here. There it is.
There it is, doing its thing. Wow, that's incredible.
And I had to explain to a couple of people what boulot is because they listened to the show.
Boulot.
They knew what it was, but they thought that was a funny word. Stephan, trauma surgeon word. So, hey, Stephan, what's this weird Lamborghini? What's the story? It can't be weirder than that airplane.
I mean, just what the world needs, man. Another safari kind of vehicle. So, I mean, I think, Porsche came out with their Safari, sold gazillions of them, got a ton of press. So Lamborghini, I think, is like, hey, why not? So this is their off-road version of the Huracan. And it's got a rally mode, and it's kind of an interesting vehicle. I mean, if you look at it, their motto for the Sterratos, beyond the concrete. I mean, yeah, like realistically, who owns one of these things is going to go beyond the concrete? I mean, you don't see Range Rovers going off-road. You don't see Escalades going off-road. So this thing is going to be at Cars and Coffee. They'll sell every one of them. And then the little byline is designed to push the envelope when the asphalt ends. And if you look at this thing, it's got J.C. Whitney bolt-on fender flares.
Do we need reference on that?
I know. I mean, so yeah, for listeners, people of only of our age would get that. When we were kids, J.C. Whitney there used to be a thing called catalogs before the internet. You get them in the mail.
They were made out of paper. Yeah.
And they were made out of paper. And J.C. Whitney was like the Harbor Freight of stuff that you could bolt onto your car. I mean,
that's beautiful. It's a Harbor Freight of auto accessories. Yeah.
It was just cheap stuff. If you go down the road and see somebody who's got stuff tacked all on their car, little tiny spoilers and whistles and all kind of fake badges, they come out of the J.C. Whitney catalog. I don't even know if they still exist, but and it's got a snorkel up on top of the up on top of the roof, like maybe the thing's going to go underwater, get a little dust. I don't know. But they say the iconic air intake on the rear hood accentuates the car's sporty, audacious character. I mean, whoever's in marketing sure did a good job writing up this car. So if anybody who actually buys this car is going to read the marketing, they're just going to buy it because they can afford it.
Well, I think the marketing people probably just looked up the Porsche thesaurus and found every sort of word and every descriptor they could. And it's beyond basically that Lambo is beyond scraping the concrete. The thing that's so odd about that to me, if a Porsche Dakar could be defended. It can be defended because at least it did that.
Yeah.
You know, at least the Porsche competed bouncing over sand dunes and actually did that. For Lamborghini to do it is just a Me Too exercise in, hey, they did, why don't we? You know, and when there you go, beyond the concrete. And that's either photoshopped or the only one in the world that will ever do that. I'm amazed, but you know, we're sort of in a Me Too society a bit. We're also in a little bit of the look at me. The societal norms are just non-existent. So the more attention you can get by being different, that's what you're after. And I believe that the Sterrato may be that. So Steve-O, where do you weigh?
I'm just I'm disgusted. It really is stupid. Yeah, I agree completely with Stefan. This is a cars and coffee mobile. There's no way anyone's going to take this off road. It's so stupid. You can take a Jeep or a Bronco or something else. Why would you bother? Same for the Porsche Dakar. I had exactly the same idea. I was waiting for Stefan to tell us that it comes with a tent that goes on the roof, but
Yeah.
Stefan, they sold out instantly, and then they were going to make some more, right, or something like that. I think they increased the production, but it sold out instantly.
Well, of course it's going to sell out. You know, like Adam said, I mean, you know, for the dot-commers and all those instant wealth, you know, you're not going to see this in the Hamptons, but you may see this in Silicon Valley, you know.
It's, you know, it's ridiculous. You know, one thing I'll say, I like the name Sterrato. Sounds really cool. It sounds like a really cool car. Just on the wrong car.
Yeah, sounds like some kind of switchblade knife or something, but it's cool. I mean, yeah, they sold out. They'll sell as many as they can make, but hey, we're just old guys who this just doesn't fit our bill for what a cool car company.
And I'm not trying to put you in a corner here, but is it in the 300 grandish range? I didn't even see a sticker on it. High twos, 3.
I think it's around 3, Stefan, something like that.
Yeah,
goodness.
Out of my price range.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a this or that for $80,000. So
indeed,
it's a lot of money, and it's just unbelievable. So, by the way, we are old guys who happen to have good taste. So there,
yeah,
we should be listened to. I want to go through the second quarter sales figures because they're interesting. And what I didn't want to do, and I do this kind of every quarter, I go through a little bit of the numbers. What I didn't want to do is say, oh, here's the top 10 sellers, because that's boring. I wanted to kind of pick out some information I thought our listeners would like, and I think you guys would respond to. So I picked out some interesting numbers, and I definitely want to get you guys' take. And this is kind of off the beaten track stuff. So very quickly, it's been a good year so far. They're on track this year to sell about 15 million vehicles. A great year is 17 million. A bad year is around 12. So 15 is a good year by anybody's standard. The F-Series pickup trucks by Ford have continued to be the best sellers. It's been that way for about 40 years. And that's not too interesting, but Ford was up about 10% in the F-Series, which again has been in good stock for at least a year. Maybe 9 months, is up 34%. So they're selling, but here's what's not selling, guys. And we've talked about this, but that's the F-150. But here's what's not selling. And we have been talking about this, but now we have some numbers. First half of 2023, the Mustang Mach-E is down 21%. The Lightning is hanging in there, but, and this is a big but, Automotive News reported today that the Lightning is getting a $10,000 price cut. So they're having to discount these vehicles now. I still see the same, by the way, 5 F-150 Lightnings at my dealer. I saw that just on Friday. So Mach-E, which is pictured there, and the Lightning, which is just below it, they are down. Guys, this is going to be tough for as we transition to electric vehicles.
Well, and somewhere in there, Steve, and I'm not sure if it was in the great stats that you sent, but I saw that Ford's ICE sales are up 10%. So it doesn't look like the whole world is just, I mean, I think we're still sort of in the romance stage of the BEVs, but I think it's interesting that they're giving 10 grand back. I mean, that's a, that's a rather hefty rebate. And if I'd just driven off the lot a couple of months ago and didn't get the 10 grand, I'd probably placing a call to my Ford dealer.
Well, the Cybertruck apparently is going to actually, start rolling out. That's going to take a bite out of the F-150. The Rivian pickup truck is taking a bite out of it. And they're catching up. And I think people that own these trucks, especially I think people that are buying an F-150 truck, these are people that are probably a lot of legacy owners, and then as well as some new owners, where I think the Rivian and the Cybertruck are going to be new people to the truck market. So I think you've got somebody who's got an F-150 has a fleet of F-150s, whereas in the construction work business, they get in this thing and then they find out that they can't tow or haul with it, and their range goes away. So I think the people that are going to be buying the F-150 Lightnings are going to end up, I bet the majority are newcomers to owning a truck, not people that have a work truck or a business.
Yeah, and the Mach-E, I think, is a Tesla Model Y that doesn't look as good as the Tesla Model Y.
Oh, I think it looks way better. The Tesla
Yeah.
Model Y looks like somebody pulled the top and the bottom and kind of stretched it out. The proportions are off for me.
Well, since we just mentioned that, the Tesla Model Y,
Yeah.
we just said that the Mustang Mach-E sales are down 21%. Tesla Model Y sales are up 103%, and they sold well last year. This model is blowing up. People are buying them.
I know, it's crazy. The sales, Elon Musk dropped the prices, and I think that has a lot to do with it. It brought them down affordable, and then they get the benefit, the tax advantage as well versus some of the other manufacturers. And yeah, and I mean, it really looks like if you want to buy an EV to own something that touch feels looks different, there's no doubt that the Tesla does not appear mainstream whatsoever. Whereas a Mach-E can almost look like a kind of more of a mainstream crossover. Interior is very nice. But if you want that,
Steph, I agree with you on both points. I mean, I don't like that the Mach-E wears the Mustang nameplate, but that ship has sailed. Obviously, I don't really love that the Bronco Sport has that nameplate either. However, that car does kind of blend in the Mach-E, but the Tesla looks odd. Its lips are sewn together. I just have never gotten used to that look at all. The thing to me that was interesting in the sales figures is that Rivian, whose stock peaked at maybe like $129 or $30 somewhere in 2021, got down to as low as $12 this year. That would be a tenth, boys and girls, if you don't have your calculator out. And now I think it's up to about $25. So yeah, it's doubled. How in the world have their sales increased in light of having lost a $7,500 tax incentive? Do you guys attribute that to people are sort of getting used to them, or maybe that they have the adaptability with the Tesla charger? Like, Steve, what's your take on how is Rivian doing this?
Rivian appeals to kind of an urban / suburban buyer. The F-150 Lightning competes with the F-150. The Rivian competes with basically a Range Rover Sport. This is the classic example of a 50-year-old female radiologist who has a Range Rover Sport. She's going to get the Rivian SUV. Maybe a 40-year-old lawyer who lives like outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and maybe that 40-year-old drives a Tacoma. Now she's making money as a lawyer. She's going to get the Rivian truck. I think that's what it is, and I think that's good for Rivian because these are people who are certainly new to electric, but they're also kind of new to trucks. I don't know what else to say. I think that's what it is. You get, Range Rover Sport buyer is going to get the SUV, and a Tacoma buyer with money is going to get the pickup truck. I don't know how else to explain it. Who's going to buy those? Neither one of those examples is going to buy a Mach-E.
Yeah, my former trauma partner, Jeff Walker, he bought a Rivian. And then my neighbor and physician I work with up at Huntsville, Dave Drennan, who's a cardiologist, he bought a Rivian truck. And they're first-time truck buyers. And Dave's always hauling canoes, and he kayaks. And Jeff liked the idea as a homeowner, be able to haul all the kids' bicycles. They go camping. So he liked the idea of having a truck, and he would never get a ICE truck because he's already had an EV before this. he wanted something more environmentally friendly from his standpoint. So he got the Raven truck, and I think that's who's buying those. Or
Yeah, I
people
think I agree. I think there's a cool factor there, which is absent in a lot of other electric vehicles. For example, I'll go through this quickly because I don't want to take up too much time. But the Mach-E, the Audi Q4 electric vehicle, and the Audi Q8 electric vehicle, those are both SUVs. Those Audis have greater than 100-day supply at the dealerships. And oh, by the way, let's circle back. Remember, early in the year, we talked about the Cadillac Lyriq. They still have sold 2,300 Lyriqs in 6 months. That obviously doesn't have a cool factor.
Right.
It's just not doing good. And I think Mary Barra has put a lot of stock in this car. It's like, I don't know if this is considered a make or break. It's not a make or break for GM. I mean, GM's doing okay in light of all the other things that are going on, but there's a lot banked on this car. And what'd you say, 2,300 for the year?
Yeah. Yes.
Goodness. Yeah. And I think in Q2, it was maybe 1,400 is the number I have. It's just like, you just can't make a business case with that. It's just not there. I mean,
I feel like, and Stefan, I want to get your take, but I feel like the Mary Barra is like a camper, and she's sitting there and she's got all these matches, and she's like putting a little bit of flammable liquid on this wet paper and wet kindling, and it's not catching fire. And they're doing everything they can to try to get this to catch fire, and it's not. There's nothing. There's no heat or fire with Cadillac EVs.
I think realistically, the only Cadillac that anybody is going to want to buy that has a cool factor is an Escalade. And past an Escalade, their sales numbers are pitiful, and they've lost that cool thing. But, the Escalade has become a brand of its own. And, I could see one day Cadillac going away, but there's still being the Escalade as an independent brand falling under GM. But Cadillac needs to do something.
Yeah, and
the Lyriq is not it.
No, and then the opposite, and this is something that's been on fire for years now. For the first time ever, Hyundai Kia outsold Stellantis at any period. So the first 6 months, they outsold all of Stellantis, which is Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, all of that. And a good example.
And Fiat. Are you throwing Fiat into that? I mean, lest we forget.
How did I forget that? Oh my gosh. Yeah, and Alpha.
Yeah, those. And to think that Fiat at some time in its industrial past was probably in the top 3 selling things on tires in the world. Oh, the mighty have fallen. So back to your point, Kia Hyundai.
Yeah, my only point was a Hyundai Tucson, and Stefani had a picture of it. The Tucson it competes with the RAV4, the CRV, and the Escape, and it outsold the Escape by a lot, 100,000 to 64,000. But it's emblematic of why Hyundai is doing so well. They've got the Telluride, they got the Palisade SUVs. We had Gary Duncan on, and he sells Hyundais, and he's saying they're selling like crazy. This is a big story for them to outsell Stellantis. And anyway, it's kind of cool. Very quickly, and then we'll wrap this up. Rolls-Royce, and you have a picture of the Cullinan there. About a year ago, the last time we talked about Rolls-Royce, I guess it was at the end of the calendar year 2022. Stefan, you and I talked about this, and it was about 50-50 of Rolls-Royce Cullinan to their cars. And now it's not even close. The car in the first 6 months of 2023, Rolls-Royce sold 270 cars, and they sold 615, more than double the number of Cullinans. That's not a good looking vehicle.
I disagree. I saw a Cullinan when I was down in Florida. It was just, if you want to make a statement, man, which is what this car is, it pulled in, and it's massive, it's giant, but I thought it was really cool. I mean, I would never be seen in one, but it's an impressive vehicle, both in size, fit and finish, and the interior was spectacular. If you've got that kind of change and you want to be, cruising in a giant SUV, and you got a track suit, and in the import-export business, this is the one.
I know that you can't take a whole lot of liberties with the all too overdone SUV silhouette and just that platform. I mean, you know, they're trying to sort of break a little trend here or there. And we've mentioned before, giving nods to Hyundai, Kia, and even to a great degree Range Rover for looking fresh and looking upscale. That to me, at the blink of an eye, other than the fact that the door handles meet in the middle with, I presume, a suicide door on the rear. Aside from that, it's not really much of a standout. Maybe the interior is fantastic, and the Cullinan is, you know, I get all hung up on the names. It sounds like it's a water filter. It doesn't even sound
True.
It doesn't sound that special. And that's another vehicle we're talking about. You know, it used to be back in the day. Now I'm really sounding like the old man. A 6-figure automobile was a big ticket item, and these are $300,000 to $400,000. I don't know. I mean, if I won the money, I wouldn't buy it.
The average transaction price is actually over $400,000 for any Rolls Royce. I appreciate that Stephan thinks it's handsome, because people do. It's not for me. It's too boxy. It's very conservative design, and it's all about the grill.
Well, the Rolls Royce
all
is
about the grill. That's right.
It's all about the grill. But yeah, I think I mean, but when this thing pulled into the parking lot, you knew, I mean, immediately your peripheral vision, you saw this thing, and it's just such a massive presence with that giant grill, and you know something special is coming in. But yeah, not for me either. But I can see why they sell a ton of these.
I guess if Adams were to ask me this or that, the Cullinan or the Lamborghini Sterrato, I don't know what I do. Maybe I take the Rolls Royce, but
I take the Rolls Royce all day long.
I would too.
You wouldn't get laughed at in the Rolls Royce.
I would too.
Yeah, you wouldn't get laughed at in the Rolls. You pull up in the Sterrato, people be like, "What is that?" But no, you pull up in the Rolls, and like, "Oh, nice."
What's living underneath this, Stephen? Is that a BMW? What is up underneath that? Do we know?
I didn't see it. I was just
no, not living underneath as a photo. But what is the color platform? What is its basis?
I don't think it has one.
Okay,
maybe the 7
well,
Series.
Good enough. I mean, if it's unique, that's better. That actually sets it apart a little bit.
I guess it's probably a stretched 7 Series, a stretched X7, which is kind of the same thing.
It says it uses an aluminum space frame chassis version of Rolls-Royce's modular architecture of luxury platform.
Right, which is probably an X7 that's been stretched, because of course they're gonna use all the technology and bits and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's probably like a modular X7/7 Series platform. But anyway, before we leave Rolls-Royce, I'll say very quickly, Automotive News reported something I find very interesting. Porsche is always fighting against flippers that want to flip to GT3s. Ferrari, same thing. They frown upon flippers. Well, Rolls-Royce, their CEO, announced last week to Automotive News that if you buy a Rolls-Royce, a new one, and you flip it, you will never be allowed to buy another Rolls-Royce ever.
That's rather bold. I personally think if somebody's trying to flip a Rolls-Royce, they could make more money by selling their name and contact information to Las Vegas on one of the biggest risk takers ever. I mean, Rolls-Royce ought to be proud if somebody can flip one and make money.
They're flipping them and making money, Adams. People, a Phantom, a Ghost, the Dawn, or even the Cullinan, they are able to flip them.
Remarkable. Risky,
just like a new Rolex watch, you can flip it as well. I mean, supply and demand.
Yeah. Before we get to safety, let me just say one thing very quickly, because I've never seen this. Adams, you've probably never seen these either. Somewhere where they say that the manufacturer says, never again, you are banned. And it reminds me, Stephan, you and I talked about this. There's a writer, an automotive journalist from England named Peter Robinson, and he has been banned from ever driving a Ferrari press car. He was banned for life twice.
So did he die and come back? And he was banned as a result of flipping or
writing something they didn't like. He's an automotive journalist.
Probably writing the truth.
He wrote the truth. But
Yeah.
isn't that funny? He was, I do know Chris Harris was banned by Ferrari, not for life, but he was banned. Now he's back. But yeah, Peter Robinson got letters back in the day saying you're banned for life, and then it happened twice.
Yeah.
So maybe these Rolls-Royce flippers will be banned for life twice. Who knows? So, all right, Stefan, what do you got for safety, man?
We're going to, you sent me some FARS data, which is the fatality reporting system by our government does on motorcycle crashes. I know we're automotive, but we're all things automotive, meaning if it's got a gas engine in it, we're in wheels, we are interested. As part of my career as a trauma surgeon, I just really hated it when a motorcycle wreck came in. You get the trauma alert, motorcycle crash, it's going to be bad. They rarely ever ended well. If they were brought in by the helicopter or the ground, or it was going to be a bad deal. And it makes sense. You're flying off a vehicle and you're hitting the pavement. Things are not going to end well for you, especially if you strike something. You can imagine flying off a motorcycle and hitting a tree or an abutment or another vehicle. But we've talked about on this podcast how pedestrian deaths have gone up in the last several years. We've talked about distracted driving. We've talked about how roads need to be safer, speed limits are too high in high traffic areas. Well, motorcycles, and just like bicyclists and pedestrians, which are called pedicyclists, Adams, you can skip comments on that one.
You can see the comment forming.
I can see the twinkle in your eye. But anyway, the motorcycle fatalities went up 21% over 2 years from 2019 to 21. I mean, that's huge. That is a massive jump. We know that riding a motorcycle is undeniably dangerous, and for motorcycles it's the cars that are the danger. Now your weekend motorcyclist who puts on his leather, goes out touring, is on the back roads, they're going to do pretty well. But it's your average everyday motorcyclist that's using it as motor transportation. And if you compare it to so you decide to take your motorcycle to work versus your car, you can say over statistically about a motorcycle rider is 28 more times more likely to lose their life in a fatal driving crash than the motorist on the road. That kind of makes sense.
Not 28%, right? 28 times.
20 times, 28x. Yeah. I mean, so it's a dangerous thing to get on a motorcycle. And about 4 more times as you can imagine to be injured in a crash. Motorcyclists, they're only 3% of registered vehicles are motorcycles, but they make up 14% of traffic fatalities.
Wow.
Wow. That's a staggering. Yep.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine with motorcycles, speed is a problem. The faster you go on a motorcycle, the more kinetic energy that has to be dissipate when you strike and hit the ground. So 34% of motorcycle fatalities were speeding at the time. Here's what was crazy to me. 27% involved alcohol in motorcycles. Here you're getting on a crotch rocket. You're getting on a thing that is highly dangerous. But you think about who likes riding motorcycles, risk takers anyway. So 27% involved alcohol. And in single motorcycle crashes where they weren't hit by somebody else, a car hit them, 41% of those involved alcohol. Yeah. So, and the other thing, 36% did not have a valid license that's estimated to even be driving a motorcycle, and not, which is crazy. So, states have different requirements for motorcycles regarding licensure. All states do not require a motorcycle endorsement as a supplement to a standard driver's license. In Europe, if you drive a motorcycle, you have to go to a motorcycle course. And they've got the obstacle course and the driving. So it's a big deal to drive a motorcycle in Europe. But, in America, our laws vary state to state. Now, what do you think is the percent fatalities in motorcycles that are male? I mean, we've clearly described risk-taking behavior. We talked about alcohol. We talked about speeding. So of overall fatalities, what percent do you think are male?
I'm going over 90%.
Yeah, I'd say 90.
Yeah, 92%. And then only for females that are killed on motorcycles, which is a very small, you can imagine, much smaller percentage, 39% are the drivers of the motorcycle, but 61% are passengers.
Oh God, that's even sadder.
Yeah, so fathers, don't let your daughters get on motorcycles.
Good advice.
Yeah, that's why Harley drivers have the shirt where it says on the back, if you can read this, the bitch fell off. I don't approve of that t-shirt, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, when you said that, I forget the number. I think you said 36% do not have a license to drive a motorcycle. Is that what or
a valid license? Yes.
Well, that means they also don't have insurance. You talk about it's not just risk taking; it's just stupid risk taking. I mean, I can see we've all had fun on the highway. We've taken calculated risks, reasonable risks, but that is just being completely reckless about your entire life.
Yep. You know, so I think it's a lot of people. You know, oh yeah, let me just jump on your motorcycle, take it for a spin. And they're not a seasoned driver, you know, and they get the key and things just go south real fast on a motorcycle. I mean, my buddy had a motorcycle in college and he had a couple of them and he had a little dirt bike and I was riding at the back of the fraternity house and I crashed Jimbo's motorcycle at the back of the motorcycle. I mean, at the back of the fraternity house. And, you know, I wasn't doing it. I didn't have a license, but I didn't take it on the road.
So, yeah, to echo Adam's point about risk taking and stupid risk taking, you know, we've all seen some dude on a motorcycle with flip-flops and shorts and a tank top and no helmet. Yeah. But my question is, state to state, you've got this ability in some states, California most famously, to split lanes if you're on a motorcycle. Is it worse? Do you know if the fatality rate is worse in lanes where you can do lane splitting?
I don't know about lane splitting, but looking through the data, I did see, and I was very surprised, the state with the highest fatality rate for motorcyclists, New Hampshire. I mean, yeah, I was like, I'm not quite sure what's going on up in New Hampshire. But
Steve, that was a good question about the lane splitting. I'm telling you, I am not used to that visual at all. When you're creeping along in traffic and you see somebody coming up splitting the lanes, and it would take nothing, a too wide of a mirror, a slight edging over, it would take nothing to dump the rider in the street. And Stephan, as you alluded to, I mean, you know, a car goes 4 or 5 miles an hour and knocks a guy off a motorcycle going 15 or 20, even at those incredibly low speeds, somebody's bad hurt. The car may not hear it.
Oh yeah, and you hit your head on the concrete. I mean, only 65% of those riding motorcycles are wearing a DOT compliant helmet. You know, we call them brain buckets. They'd come in the ER and they bring in their helmet as this little, you know, little round thing that they wore on their head. We call them brain bucket. Use it, you know, when they bring them in, scoop the brains off the road.
Hey, Stephan. So lane splitting's been around a long time. Lack of helmet laws have been around a long time, and stupidity's been around forever.
That's all attributed to the Y chromosome.
Yeah, but the Y chromosome's been around forever. So my question is, why the increase in fatalities? Something must have changed.
I think it goes up with, you know, the change in driving behavior in this country, and we've seen, you know, as I said, pedestrian deaths are way up. Bicycle deaths are way up. And if you look at the changing fleet in America, we've gone from passenger cars to SUVs. We've gone now, if you look at the front of an SUV, you look at the front of a pickup truck today compared to those from years ago, they're much larger. So you're getting a full frontal strike instead of being thrown up over the hood of the vehicle off the windshield, which gives you a chance to decelerate. Now you're basically you're taking a full strike across your entire body. And I think we've seen that with the pedestrians and the cyclists as well. And I'm sure, and it makes sense that it applies to a motorcycle. Can you imagine if you're in a motorcycle and a Honda Civic comes across the parking lot? I mean, runs a red light and you hit the Honda Civic. Or how about taking Escalade comes through and you hit the Escalade? Big difference. You know, you get, you know, the Civic, if you hit the front end, you're likely to have some deceleration, go over the top. You hit something big like that, you're going to take a full frontal strike. So I think that what we've seen in pedestrians and cyclists applies to motorcyclists as well.
Well, let's say you're a cyclist who loves the freedom and the feeling of that. It's funny, that skipped me entirely. I never wanted one. I never had the hots for one. I see them and I go, okay, well, there's a motorcycle. I have no interest in those. I appreciate some of the engineering. What is the advice to give a serious cyclist just to learn defensive driving or learn how to handle the thing better? And I mean, like, what would you tell somebody who's like, I'm going to be a cyclist for the rest of my life?
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that.
Before you answer that, because I'm curious about that too, but I don't want to leave this. Given what you just said, Stephan, when you were operating on motorcycle accidents, what was the difference between a motorcycle crash victim and a car crash victim? If there is, if you can define it.
Can I guess one right before you answer? I mean, I know now we're volleying back and forth, but when you were talking, Steph, earlier, I was thinking about in an automobile, you would probably have some version of localized injury or injury component on you, like, oh man, their chest is messed up, or oh, their arm's messed up. I bet on a motorcycle, it's everything's messed up.
Yeah, well, so motorcyclists, the number one thing is the head injury component. You know, they can have anywhere from a slight brain bleed to a devastating skull fracture. With the terrible brain bleed. So traumatic brain injury was definitely the thing we saw more of. Another thing that can differentiate motorcycle crash victims from motor vehicle crash victims was road rash. I mean, you can imagine you hit the pavement at 60 miles an hour in a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt, you're leaving a lot of skin on the pavement. And those you have to treat like burns. They cause devastating injuries. I mean, I've got some, saw some, terrible, imagine sliding down and you're hitting the pavement face first at 60 miles an hour and your face sliding across the interstate. So a lot of devastating injuries that are caused by that. And also multiple extremity fractures as they flip and roll. Yes, always a lot more injuries, and combine that with the head injury was always the major thing, as well as being, they were typically males. So I absolutely love motorcycles. They scare the hell out of me. I always wanted one as a kid, never got one. My mother's father was killed on one. And then my dad lost a friend on a motorcycle. And yeah, I mean, they are amazing, but they're absolutely frightening. I mean, get yourself a little bit, out of balance in a car, you kind of scare yourself, your tail wags a little bit, but you imagine doing something like that on a motorcycle. It just doesn't end well. But for people that do want to ride motorcycles, the ones that we always saw that, would do well are the guys that are out there on a Saturday or Sunday. They're wearing full leathers. They've got a full face protection helmet, and they're sticking to the back roads, and they're just going for a nice ride. They're staying off the interstates. They're staying out of cities, but they're doing like tail of dragon kind of stuff. They're cruising the back roads where they know it's safer. There's not going to be a car pulling out in front of them. And, I always talk about, they say, no defensive driving. You got to be on the offense all the time. And motorcycle riders, they're looking at the dog. People that are really out there, they're watching the dogs. They're watching the driveways to make sure that they've got time to react to anything. And friends of mine that ride tell you that people don't see motorcyclists as well because there are just not as many on the road, unlike Europe. So you have to treat every vehicle as if they don't see you. And you can't assume because they're at the stop sign that they're not going to pull out in front of you. So those are the people I know that have done thousands of miles on motorcycles and done it safely. They're not going down to play pool at the local hitching post at 9:00 and drink and jump back on the motorcycle and go home.
Cool. Well, that's a lesson, especially summer when motorcycles ride a lot more than in winter. So
yeah, and August is the highest month of fatalities, as you could imagine. Yep, August is yep.
All right, thank you, Stephan. Very valuable lesson there. So Adams, introduce our next segment, because it was your idea, and as soon as I said this, I'm like, this is going to be number one. I said this is going to be great. Number two, I really want to hear what Stephan says.
Well, this is a segment of it's kind of like the sort of the closet desire you have for a particular automobile that you think is kind of cool, and you realize it's that you maybe uniquely think it's kind of cool, but if you had to take it out in public, you would be a little bit embarrassed to do that. And it's a fine line, because we can all think of cars that we think are cool. We can all think of cars that would be embarrassing to be in, but it's that combination of something you kind of like, but you just know for a fact somebody else wants to throw a brick at it.
Or or one of your buddies is gonna just laugh at you. Yeah, and I think
There's
we're
an
gonna
old
laugh at each other here.
there's an old joke that I won't tell, but if you know the punchline, just keep it to yourself. It's kind of that there's a joke about a fat girl and a Vespa for the weekend, and I'll let you just figure that one out, or we'll talk about it later because this is a family show. But that's the kind of car we're talking about.
Okay.
All
So
right.
we got 5 that we can pick, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we're just gonna do a round table, or just
I want to start with, we'll go back and forth, but I want to hear what Stefan's first one, because I know this is going to be good.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna.
I hope it's not. I hope it's neither a fat girl nor a Vespa.
No, I'm gonna pick one that I've got a bunch and neither one, but okay, here we go. Here is my first one. Let's see. Here we go. How about you guys?
the Corolla GR. Oh my God! Look at this.
A Porsche Panamera. Okay. I would be deathly embarrassed to be seeing a Porsche Panamera, but they drive fantastically. It's got 4 doors. You can put 2 people in the back. But I would it would be like, what do you mean you got a Porsche and you didn't get a 911? I mean, it's kind of like, getting a Cockster. It's just,
Wow.
it's anything. I mean, if you're gonna buy a Porsche, you got to have 911. It's just the way it is. Now, if you get a second or third one, that's okay. But if you're going to get one of the SUVs, I'm not talking about the SUVs, I'm talking about the cars. But this would be so incredibly practical. I've sat in them, I've driven them, I've ridden in them. It's a great car, but I just couldn't do it. I'd be deathly embarrassed.
The horrible thing about that car? It's way better looking than its predecessor.
I was going to say that.
The first gen was even worse.
Oh, the first generation looks
bad.
like a whale. This is the second generation. And then the Cross Turismo, I think actually I wouldn't feel as bad, but second gen, still it's a 4-door Porsche.
Adams is our Porsche guy, so I'm going to defer. But I'll just say this. As soon as you said that, I was literally writing down, I was going to change my last choice, and I was going to write down Gen 1 Panamera, because the Gen 1 was so ugly. And the other thing about the Panamera still, but the first gen when they came out with it, it is a sedan on the Porsche Cayenne platform. So they took the Cayenne and they turned it into a sedan. So it's not even really a Porsche. It's a Volkswagen platform. And they turned it into the sedan. And the Gen 1 was just ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made way too many design concessions to fit a lot of headroom into the back seat. And
it drove great.
Have you ever owned one, Adams?
I've never owned one. In fact, fellas, I don't think I've ever ridden in one. I was never offered a ride and I turned it down. I'm just saying I don't think I've ever ridden in one.
You'd look lost in that car.
I'd have to stand on the seat.
All right, well, let me just say this, Adams. I tested one, the Gen 1, and I was ready to be underwhelmed because I knew it was on the Cayenne platform. They did magic with software and suspension. It feels much better than its size. I couldn't believe how much I like driving it. And what the analogy I used was, I said, you ever see a really good looking guy and he's married to a really ugly woman? It's probably because she's good in bed. That's the Panamera.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the saving attributes are just not visible. They're just, you just look at that car. And I tell you, I do like the Sport Turismo with we all sort of have an affinity for that sort of body style, but that you just never see those. But yeah, I think the Panamera is a pretty good choice.
Adams, do you think any collectability in the future?
None. Zero. 4-doors is a hard collectible category. Any 4-door sedan is just an exceedingly difficult category to ever attain collectability. You have to be something different, and that one's different, but in the wrong way.
All right.
Stephan, it's gonna be hard to beat that one.
Oh, I got some others.
Oh, I say we have some contenders.
All right, Adams, go.
Okay, let's see. Here's one that kind of started the topic because it was an offhanded comment that I had made to Steve, and Steve's just a master of picking up things that sound like they would be good topics. The Dodge Magnum Hemi. because it sort of relates to that. Does it, we sort of like the wagon. I sort of admired when Dodge came out with that. I thought, great, bringing back the, there it is.
There it is.
Bring back the American wagon, and that was a pretty decent platform. And it was a heck of an attempt by Dodge to do this, for America, the late great American V8 wagon. And the Hemi, and of course the SRT, goodness gracious. I mean, that is a hot rod. Of course, that one's been juiced up a little bit. You can tell by seeing it, but
And that's exactly how I'd want it. A little bit slammed, some 21s on it, tinted windows. It's just nasty. And I love it, man. It's on my list, Adams.
it is on your list.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Man.
How about that? Okay,
Oh my God. Oh yes, absolutely.
High five. But yeah, that's one. I mean, and I have to say that I've got a little soft spot for that wagon, but I would not be allowed to bring it home.
I was gonna say, I
No,
agree with you.
I think we all, we all agree, because even though I didn't have the Magnum, I did have the new Charger Hellcat. And it's the same thing. It lacks sophistication. It's an automotive mullet.
There's
It is. Oh Lord.
I saw one of those Chargers completely. It was like battleship gray paint, darked out, trimmed. I mean, it was just like, it's just nastiness, and I love it though, just like you, Steve-O. I mean, I love everything about the SRTs, the Dodges. I mean, they're just so in your face with tons of power, and I love them. But you're right,
So-
I couldn't be seeing one.
if you live at a double wide and you have nothing and you win the lottery, you have a mullet and a tank top. This is your car you buy if you win the lottery.
I'm afraid there's a lot of truth to that, but you mentioned that collectible question. We're staring in the face of a collector car right there.
Absolutely. Yep.
There's a 4-door that'll break that mold right in half, because it's got a lot going for it.
Sure does.
I picked that because, despite the fact that it lacks sophistication and is looked at as an automotive mullet, it has 707 horsepower. And it's loud, and it's I love it.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right, Adams, what's your next pick?
Let's see here. Okay. A Corvette ZR1, 1990 to 95. I just really, I hate the
I
C4
gotta find that
Corvette.
picture.
I mean, I just hate the C4.
It's the original King of the Road or King of the Hill, but the original ZR1.
That's it. And they hired a Mercury Marine because of their ability to do aluminum, and helped design a 48 valve head, the first in an American car. Lotus was owned by GM at the time, and they dialed in the suspension and a lot of the engine engineering. And that was a crazy sophisticated car. And I remember at the time when that car was being, like advanced little spy photo leaks and all this sort of stuff. They talk about the ZR1 coming and what they're doing. And it was like the second coming of the real Corvette that we all were waiting on. And then they launched it, and it looked just like the bone stock one next to it in the showroom. They didn't break enough of the design flair. It was almost undetectable from the normal one. There you go. Thank you.
You had to look at the taillights. They were square.
Exactly. And then what does Chevrolet do? Heaven help us all. They ended up widening the taillights on everything else.
Yeah. So why would you be embarrassed by this? Wouldn't you be proud to have one of these?
Not in the least. I would love it. Here's where I would be proud of it, honestly. And this is an interesting topic, because really you can't just have this one car. It's like, hey, why would you buy a car you're embarrassed of? Well, this is your third or your fourth car, whatever. That car would be cool when you're gathered around your own garage with a few very close friends who you're not going to risk losing them, and you just pull open that clamshell and you just look at the motor. Yeah. That's what I would do with it, because it's an engineering marvel.
But one of the nurseryans I worked with in Dayton, Ohio, bought one of those, and he had a green one.
You mean when they first came out?
Yeah, when they first came out, sure did.
Yeah.
Yep.
God, the world was waiting on that thing, and they just launched it. No, it just did not go over well.
I think the green that they had for that was like a teal right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a little bit teal,
Yeah.
dark green.
Yeah.
It was pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one that you don't have to bring it back up there, but there's one in there, and that would be my choice. I mean, I love that car.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get a picture up here. There it is. How about that engine?
Goodness gracious,
And
yeah.
then look at you, it's gorgeous. Look at that. Wow.
Just look at the intake runners and the crazy cam covers. I mean, the whole thing is just, I mean, even if you don't care one whit about engineering or mechanical things, you look at that and that was like, wow, whatever that is works.
All right,
Well,
Steve-O.
You've got the picture up there, because my number 2 was the 2024 Tesla Cybertruck. And when they first had, the prototype running around 2, maybe 3 years ago, I thought there's no way they're going to actually make it look like that. And I just saw a teaser picture from Tesla yesterday, and it looks like they're going to make it look just like that. It's incredibly ugly. I think it's outrageous. I think it's awful. It looks like one of you guys said it looks like a kid in like elementary school. Maybe that was you, Adams. You said draw a truck, and this is what he draws. It's embarrassing, and yet somehow, in my heart of hearts, I think it's probably the future.
I gotta say, Steve-O, I had it on my list as well. I mean, I saw this thing and I'm like, it's kind of, to me, it's, I think the reason I think it appeals to you and we'll see what Adams has to say, but I think because the DeLorean appealed to me. And in this, it's like, this is like almost a pickup truck version of a DeLorean, which I think that's why it appeals to me. It's on my list as well.
I never thought of that analogy. It's completely correct. It's stainless steel, and it's different, and it looks futuristic.
Yes.
Yeah, Adams, what do you think?
I just couldn't hate it anymore. I mean, I'm sitting here, I am racking my brain to think about an uglier automotive statement than that. And it's like out of a sci-fi sort of, the animated sort of cartoony pages of what somebody in the future is going to drive, and that's what it kind of tries to look like. And I heard the designer sort of defend why it is triangulated in its shape because of strength, and I give little props to that, but I just
okay, is this coming from the man who sent me this picture?
Yeah. He's blowing my cover there.
Yeah, I thought that was and didn't that come from you, Adams? That
at least with the Cybertruck, and I agree. As soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, so you're kind of on the fence. But anyway, couldn't hate it more. Couldn't hate it more. I'm like, all right, that's pretty definitive.
And then you send me a picture of a Hummer truck. Right. I mean, what is this thing?
I don't know. That appeals.
You could argue that the Cybertruck it looks like the future. It's futuristic. It's different. But what's the redeeming quality of the H3T?
It just appeals to my inner mustache. I don't know what to say.
Okay.
I don't know what to say about that thing. But the thing that we all love. Are we on to this pick? Did we already?
You're on it now.
Yes.
Okay. Oh God, I got thrown right here in the spotlight. But everybody loves to hate the Hummer, me included. The fact that it's so big and so fat, and it came out at the wrong time. All the things that are wrong with the big Hummer. This really is sort of, if you could say, sort of diminutive, at least for a Hummer. So it was like a scale down, and it's got that goofy 5-cylinder up front, which I sort of hate. I don't know if they ever put a V8 in it, Steve, you may know, but no. They did not. Okay.
Doesn't it seem like a mini pickup truck size?
It's a smaller truck. It would qualify as a mid-sized truck.
It was on the Chevy Colorado platform.
Okay. There you go. And so, yeah, that's a car that I kind of thought, well, Hummer had one barely okay vehicle, and that was it. But yeah, I couldn't ride it around.
Well, that segues us into this pick from Steve-O.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a poser.
Well, we all,
I could limbo under that thing.
We all see these, and it's not just a Jeep Gladiator. And I picked a Jeep Gladiator, but I want it lifted, and the big wheels and the big winch, and I want like and then the matte, the kind of the frozen gray paint. I couldn't find one of those, but all the obnoxious stuff. And on the one hand, it's a bro-dozer, and you just know the dude that gets out of it has a 9-year car loan. But I really like it.
I just think a Jeep pickup truck just doesn't work for me, man. It just does not work.
I feel guilty even putting the picture up, and I don't want anyone to see me getting out of it. I would love to drive it around.
Just get a Raptor or the what's the Dodge version of that? The what's that thing called?
The TRX, but this
the
is
TRX. Yeah,
those are too tasteful for me.
Yeah. They actually show a modicum of restraint.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna pick one of Adam's because he's gonna die. Here we go. This is a Deshavo, the French Citroen Deshavo, but the Charleston edition.
The emphasis on douche.
Yeah. And I love these cars. I love the paint scheme, and yeah. I would be embarrassed. I'd rather have a regular Deshavo, but if I could have one, I'd like an older gray one. But the color of this black and white, and it's got the interior that goes along with the same color theme. It's just, to me, it's making fun of itself. And but I love it, and I think I'd be embarrassed to drive this version of a Deshavo, not a regular Deshavo, but this one. But if I could have the Charleston version, I'd have the Charleston version.
What is the Charleston version? What makes is this a Charleston?
That is a Charleston, yeah, with the red and the black paint. It's got the checked interior, and it's got the red, the dog dish hubcaps with the red rims. Yep, that's the Charleston version.
Okay, so that little crazy paint design, that's sort of
crazy paint design. Yep.
Or is it sort of like insect wings? I can't tell what it's trying to actually do there. Steph, I can see you in one of those, and I would. Yeah. I would not make you feel embarrassed for that, because your Franco background and the fact that car represents so much. I could see of the embarrassing cars that you have chosen and will choose. I could see you in that, and I wouldn't laugh at you too hard.
Every time I mention the word Deshavo, you laugh at me. So I figured the abuse would continue even with this one.
I think it's cool. I like the color because it reminds me that you'd have to wear what Prince would call the raspberry beret, but you gotta wear a beret when you're driving this. I think it's cool. I really like it. Stephan, I love that car.
All right, well, good. All right, who's next?
Adams.
Emma. Okay, let's see. You slid the Hummer truck in there when I wasn't looking. I would say, and this is going to be surprising. Any Lamborghini from the Countach forward, any, pick one, any of them. I mean, because that car, like back in the glory years, to me, I mean, I think, I tell you what, I'll give up. I'll say not Countach forward. I'll say end of Diablo forward. So 1996 forward, I would say, is just where Lamborghini went from being a Ferrari competitor to these sort of crystal swilling psycho prostitute. I don't know what they are. They've gone way too far. They sort of like go as far on the wildness and the outlandishness as they can. The Gallardo was okay, but aside from that, I don't know. I just would not want to drive one. I saw a white one today with some, .com kid like, Stephan has described before in it. And I thought, well, there you go. That's it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't ride that around.
I just pulled up the Diablo VT Roadster. I agree. And the reason is, have you ever been to South Beach in Miami?
I'm afraid so. Yeah.
And it is just one Lamborghini. They're all popping their throttles, crackling just after another with these crazy paint colors and lots of gold chains. Yeah. Yep. You would actually want to own one, but you'd be embarrassed. I couldn't even own it. No, couldn't do it. Now go way back to Countach, maybe. Yeah. Or Mura. Yeah. But
I mean, it's one of those cars that'd be fun to have in your garage. It'd be fun to look at. It'd be fun to sort of study the engineering differences and kind of the crap build quality, but you just couldn't drive around in it.
I love the shape of the Murcielago. I love it, love it, love it. But I'm sure it's great to drive, but I couldn't own one either.
Yeah. All right. Who's next?
Wow. I'm going to go to my last one because we probably we're getting a little short on time, but I'll
All
go
right.
my last one, which is the new Lexus LS sedan. And if you look at it, it's completely overwrought in its styling. So they tried way too hard on the styling. And it is an old guy car. I would bet you the average age of a buyer or an owner of this car is in the high 60s. It has to be. Whenever I see one, it's always some old dude. I've never seen a woman driving one. So this is an old guy car, but I did drive it. And once you get on the highway with it,
It's
you know,
unbelievable.
the old expression from the 70s that they used to say about Cadillac, it's like driving on a cloud. Well, this is like driving on a cloud. And on the one hand, I know it's an old guy car, and I know driving on a cloud, I'm supposed to like sports cars, but man, if you're tired or you have to go a long distance, driving on a cloud in this car and being in the luxury in the interior, it is a guilty pleasure. And again, you know, what if I owned one and I got out of it, some young dude in his WRX or STI or something would look at me like, oh, there's another 70-year-old guy driving a car. But I love it.
You know, I mean, Steve, golly, that's an interesting pick. That whole, I think they call that the spindle design, that grill with that crazy looking sort of hourglassy shape, but not as attractive as an hourglass. It's like Lexus is just wearing us out on that. It wasn't great on day one. It's not any better now, but you know, you always hear about how wonderfully engineered they are. And the LC 500, is that the good looking two-door coupe? Except for the grill, except for the weird grill. Yeah, and I agree with you. And all you hear about is how fantastically screwed together those cars are, but it'd be a bit of an embarrassment.
It was on my list as well. And remember, Steve, we went to Pebble Beach years ago and they had the brand new LS and we both sat in it. And like, you know, you always thought you wanted, you know, the S class, but man, this LS is just, I mean, the ride, the fit, the finish. And, but yeah, it was on my list as well. I'm going to admit, I always aspired to have one as my cruiser. But I'd be so embarrassed to own one. It's like you've given in to how old you actually are. And I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah, that's a good description. You've given into your age, and
yes,
you always want to be seen in a car that's younger than you, and this ain't it.
Well, I think we need to close out on Adam's last one here. Is this yours, Steve-O?
That's Adam's.
Oh, that's me. No, you
All right.
you handed me that, Steve, 2 times. You said the guy in the WRX.
RX, yeah.
Oh, I did.
And there it is. And then you said, you always want to be the guy driving something a little younger than you. This one is way too much younger than I am. This one is like I'm totally trying to appear like I can still fit into my high school clothes or something. And it just, I don't know, that car, it's got all the crazy cool engineering, a ton of horsepower stuffed into that little 4-cylinder, a air grabber hood. I mean, look at that thing. That's straight out of the 1970s Dodge playbook right there. That air grabber. I'm surprised it doesn't have teeth painted on the side. And it's got 4-wheel drive. It's a rally winner, but dear God, if I drove that thing around, people just throw stuff at me. I know they would, and they should.
It'd be an absolute blast to drive that car, but you're right. It would be definitely embarrassing to get out of it. And you'd have to open your garage door, go out, go for a spin, and then come back in and quickly close the garage door behind you. And hopefully nobody saw you.
Exactly. With the
it would be a blast.
The 90% tint on the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick, Adams. The problem is that you get out of it and everybody looks at you like you're trying to relive your youth. And it's just embarrassing because it's not age appropriate. I drove one of these, the last generation, and oh my gosh, Stefan's right. It is so much fun. Talk about turbo lag. You think the engineers, you drive a modern German car like an M3, you can't feel any turbo lag. This is nothing but turbo lag. It does nothing until 4,500 RPMs, and also you're like, bam! I mean, you're like, whoa, what happened? And it's really fun.
And you have to put one of those Maxwell coffee can mufflers on the back too, Adams.
Oh, that required.
Yes.
You know, I can just see pulling up to the Cars and Coffee and that with all the kids gathered around and all their racial rides and wondering who's going to pop out. And there I roll out creaking. I mean, they would think I was a pedocyclist.
You just
Oh,
you just
maybe
tell
that's a good-
people, oh, my Ferrari's getting picked. This is my son's car.
Ferrari's
my
in the garage. I
grandson.
took my son's car. Yeah. Oh, maybe
I love
close
that
out on
choice.
that one, huh?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place to end. I had so much fun driving that car, but yeah, and it's got the cheap interior. And it's not good for us, but oh my gosh, is it fun?
And I would want the blue one too, because that's a famous color. I think you picked the perfect one to put up there.
Yeah, there you go. And we'll end
All
with
right.
the honorable mention here.
Whoa!
I almost picked that. That was on my
The-
list and I took it off. That's
The
awesome.
Honda Element. We'll just end with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. All right, with that, Stefan, close us out, man.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening in again. And remember, like, listen, subscribe, leave some comments, and tell your friends about us. And catch us next week.